We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Ken Pulskamp, retired city manager in Santa Clarita, California, current executive director at the California City Management Foundation. Ken, welcome to the podcast. It is a true pleasure and privilege to have you on today.
It's an honor to be here, Seth. Thank you for asking me.
Well, it feels like it's the 3-part series, right? You had the Godfather series, 1, 2, 3 was kind of a dud. I'm not quite sure. Return of the Jedi, kind of the dud, but I think our third one of this series is going to be the best one yet. We had Ken Striplin on episode 305, the current city manager in Santa Clarita. Patrick Bryan on a few episodes ago, who serves in Georgia. Part of his story was so significant as an analyst in his time in Santa Clarita, so formative, episode 347. But now we get the Godfather. We get the guy who's influenced it all. Numerous awards, Wes McClear, ICMA Service Award, Helen Putnam, I think 6 times. I mean, this is going to be an amazing career to unpack and just what you've learned, these insights. But before we get to the professional, let's do what we do here on the HaltingWinter Podcast. Take us back to the very beginning. Let us get to know you as the person. Where were you born, and kind of what was the childhood that shaped you and led you on this formative journey?
Well, I was actually born in San Francisco in the Sunset District, which, if you know, the city is just I grew up a couple blocks away from Golden Gate Park. So Golden Gate Park and the beach was all my backyard, essentially, and had a great childhood. Then about halfway through high school, my parents moved to Fresno. My father had a different job. And so I ended up going to Fresno State for the first couple of years of college. And then I decided I wanted to move to Sweden. And I learned Swedish and went to school at the University of Uppsala. And then I wasn't ready to come home. So I spent an extended period of time traveling through Europe and North Africa, and then overland across all of Asia, which was a wonderful adventure. Then I finished up my degree at Fresno State and had an opportunity to apply for a job in the budget office with the city of Fresno. Well, I knew almost nothing about local government, but the pay was 50 cents an hour more, so it seemed like a great opportunity. So I got this job as the intern, and it turns out I loved it. It was a perfect fit for me. It was an opportunity to have a positive impact on individuals, on families, on communities. And it just seemed, I grew up in the area, in the era of Kennedy, talking about public service, and it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. And it was just a perfect fit for me. So I spent about 8 years in Fresno, left as a deputy city manager, and then moved to Bakersfield as the assistant city manager. So the number two in the organization. After just a few years in Bakersfield, I heard about an opportunity in a city that had annexed or that had incorporated just a few months earlier, Santa Clarita, which was the largest city in history, as far as we can tell, to ever incorporate. So at the time, it had no city hall. It just had a handful of employees. It had no rules, no regulations. It was completely a blank slate, but it was a city of almost 150,000 people. So it was an opportunity to get in there and build an organization from scratch. And both Fresno and Bakersfield were very tough cities with a lot of problems. So, in a lot of ways, I learned many things that shouldn't be done. And I wanted to experiment with a new way of city government. And it was an opportunity to try a lot of those things out in Santa Clarita. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell how I got started in the city management business.
I love it. Okay, we got to unpack. This is so good. I want to get to Sweden in this whole, journey, because we've had a number of guests on who talk about leaving the country, and again, whether it's Asia or Europe or wherever it is, and how significant that time was to get out of the culture, out of kind of the way they saw the world, and into just a broader scope of things. So I want to hit on that. But before we get to there, as you're growing up here in the States, in California, was there any awareness of local gov? Did you have any, any relatives or anyone that worked in that, or any real awareness of what local gov did?
Virtually nothing. So I was pretty much like everybody else in the United States. But like I say, once I found out about it, it really fit who I was. The philosophy, the work ethic, everything was perfect for me.
Well, that's one of the things why this podcast exists. We have so many young people, so many city managers that are on this podcast have the same thing. They had no idea really what local gov does. And I think, man, local gov, not only, even if you never work in it, it's so significant, doing such positive work. And I think we need to shine the spotlight on that, because when people think about government and politics, they think federal level, state level. They hardly ever think of what happens in their own backyard. And yet it's your local government that significantly impacts your life far more than I think state and federal. Every day, the modern services that we require.
That's absolutely right. I think people forget that it's the local government that's providing police and fire and stormwater and garbage services and water, everything that you use day in, day out, all our roads, public transportation. And working in local government is really an opportunity to have a very positive impact on that. That if one works in the state government and certainly in the federal government, for virtually all of the positions, you end up being a small cog in a giant machine. When one works in local government, one really has the opportunity to make significant change and leave a legacy that, I can drive around Santa Clarita pretty much on any street and see things that my team and I had an opportunity to create, to maintain, to make better, and have positive impacts on our community.
Absolutely. And it's not only that underground infrastructure, the things that we just take for granted that are provided these services every day. It's really the above ground, the festivals, the libraries, the things that we use that actually not only we use as individuals and participate in, but they bring us together and they foster a community. And that's one of the things I know we're going to get to throughout your story, but I think is so important now as we live kind of individual kind of tech lives and live our life on social media. We need more face-to-face interactions. And we have to remember, I think the community, the things our local government has their hands in, whether it's economic development and the businesses we partake in, or again, those festivals, those things, the 4th of July, it's right around the corner here this weekend. I'm sure there are going to be cities that have put on these events and people come together and they do life together. I think it's so important.
Well, that was a big deal for us as a brand new city, because what Santa Clarita is, was 4 unincorporated areas of Newhall, Canyon Country, Saugus, and Valencia. And we were forming a new city, but also a new community of Santa Clarita. So it was kind of interesting for me. Bakersfield, that where I'd come from, had, in a lot of people's opinion, a bad reputation. We had the benefit of having no reputation. So it's way easier to create a reputation where none exists than try and improve upon a bad reputation. So we really tried to create a sense of community, having the festivals and programs that you mentioned, and really spent a lot of energy on parks and recreation, because we saw that we wanted to invest in our children and invest in the future. And the best way we thought to do that was to have value-based programs for kids. And now I meet these kids that were part of all of those programs and are now adults contributing to our community here in Santa Clarita.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's go back to, you go to the California State University, Fresno, and you're studying, I think you get a degree in economics. What were you kind of thinking there? What were you kind of thinking your life was, what trajectory kind of career-wise, was anything on your mind? And then how did Sweden all of a sudden like grab your heart?
You know, I was interested in economics always, just from, I do a lot of reading, and it seems like economics drives the world. And so I wanted to understand that at a level greater than a lot of people do. And Sweden has kind of an interesting blend of economics that leans a little more socialist than the United States, but is still a capitalist. And they try and pick the best of both systems. And so that somewhat interested me. And honestly, you know, as a 20-year-old kid, I just wanted to go try something new, meet new people, learn a new language, visit a new country. And that ended up being a very formative stage for me. And then traveling around after that, I wanted to get a better feel for the human experience. I mean, you look at where most people on the planet live, they live in Asia, they live in India, they live in Africa. And if you really want a flavor of the human experience, it's not Southern California. It's certainly not Santa Clarita. And so having the opportunity to see those places, experience those cultures, has always given me a tremendous amount of gratitude for all that we have here in the United States, and particularly in California.
It's interesting, again, studying economics or studying, systems, but it seems like it's the people, it's the culture of the people that really grab your heart, which is, again, a perfect fit for local gov, because there are systems, there are huge projects, and yet they're all focused on the betterment of people.
It's always the people that make the difference, Seth. I mean, whether you're talking about organizationally, whether you're talking about in a community, I mean, it never has ceased to amaze me how a person or two can have such a huge impact on so many other people.
Okay, I want to get now to this journey of, I call it the journey south on State Route 99, the Golden State Highway. You're going to start in Fresno. You're going to move to Bakersfield and Santa Clarita. Let's talk about Fresno. Again, you mentioned you kind of randomly get this job in local gov, basically because, it pays a little higher than what you were making. What was it like in those first years? What did you experience in local gov? When was there a moment when you were like, when the light bulb went off and you're like, oh, I think I found the place, I found the path for the career. When was that? And talk about the path to deputy city manager, because that's starting out in kind of an analyst internship position all the way to DCM. That's a pretty big stride.
Well, before the light switch went on, it was completely dark. because I can remember sitting in meetings and thinking, I have no clue what these people are talking about. That they were using words and acronyms, and it's like, I'm never going to make it here. I'm just never going to make it. And I remember in every meeting, I would sit there and take notes of stuff I didn't understand, which was a laundry list of stuff. And then I'd go to one of my colleagues and say, hey, what's this? What's this acronym mean? And over time, you start learning the language. And I got real involved in the budget. I was in charge of the budget for the city, which is a very complicated organization. Fresno has an airport, a zoo, police, fire, garbage, pretty much every municipal service one can think of. And so it really gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about a lot of different areas of local government. And then we had a employee who was he was in charge of labor relations for the city. And he had a lot of problems with the city, to the point where the unions burned up his car and shot up his house. And I mean, just terrible things happened to this poor guy. And the city manager at the time, that employee quit. The city manager came down and asked me if I would be interested in the position. And I said, I was 27 at the time. I said, put me in the game, coach. And so I got involved in labor relations and really enjoyed it. Had a opportunity. We had 7 different labor unions at the time. Got to learn a lot about negotiations. And again, being involved in every aspect of the municipal organization, it really gave me a flavor for the complexity and intricacies of municipal government that I found very intriguing.
Is 2 things you mentioned there. The first is just the language local government has. I was a pastor for years and up in Olympia, Washington, the capital of the state. And it's right next to JBLM, the big military base. So we had a number of military. And we had, and the acronyms, I'd hang out with them and just, the whole language they would even speak in their stories. I was just like, what in the world? I have no idea what's going on. And local gov has that too. And it can feel, like you say, intimidating, can feel overwhelming. I'm sure back when you were in that, you didn't have ChatGPT to go, log in or Google to be like, what in the world does this mean? You got to go talk to someone.
Yeah, it would be so much easier now.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right.
I think the military is the only one that can hold a candle to us in terms of the acronym.
It's wild. And yet, like you say, then you dig into it and you experience there is so much negotiations, unions, the projects, the scope of local gov. I really believe it's one thing. I was talking this morning with someone about the idea of taking the HaltingWinter podcast on tour and going to just places and talking to high school students, college students, because I don't believe there's an area of interest and of skill that you can't find a home for in local gov. I mean, scientists to police to project management to negotiation skill, economic development. It's just like, it's so encompassing, all the work that is done in local government.
I think that is so true. One of the things I always found interesting is that as a city manager, you can go and talk to a traffic engineer that has such a different background and perspective than when you go over and talk to somebody who's running a recreation program. And both of these people are trying to build a community and coming at it from such a vastly different perspective. That's always fascinating me.
Such a good point. So I love how now you get thrown into this position in Fresno just because you got to raise your hand, I'll do it, and not really knowing how crazy it is. And just for the audience, I think in you start there 79, close to 1980. I think it was like 218,000 is the population. Today it's like 555,000. What's so interesting about all these places you've been in just California is the scope of growth. And I think about like South Carolina right now is experiencing like it's just overwhelmingly growth. These cities that are but the scope and size of 218,000 already is big. To double that, just over time, like the infrastructure, the the projects. I mean, talk about just the busyness of local gov leaders juggling the present day realities, but also the future that is coming. That you've got to figure out, how do we grow for this and not get outbalanced, and that make sure we have a healthy, thriving city and all the various functions that make a flourishing city.
Well, that's absolutely right. We not only had to think about the infrastructure, but we had to think about the community as well. And a lot of people don't want growth, particularly in Fresno, that they were happy with a smaller agricultural town. And that wasn't the case. I think at the time, Fresno was maybe the seventh largest city in the state. And it was going to grow a lot. And as you mentioned, has grown a lot. And so we had to explain to people why this growth could be positive for the community. And that's a struggle.
Absolutely. Yeah. The role of local gov to communicate over and over and to help people. Again, that's coming back to the idea of the language of local gov. I found one of the things I teach on and speak on is what's called the curse of knowledge, right? You in local gov, you have already that language barrier, but you have so much knowledge about the scope of these projects and what's needed and required for that flourishing. A resident, they'll on a scale of 1 to 10, you on your worst day will never be below an 8 in all that you know. On the best day, that local resident will never be above a 2 or a 3. And no matter how engaged they are. And that difference can be some of the barriers that then impact these projects, that forward momentum. It's just easier for people to go, I don't get it. So, and then think negatively. So it must be a scam. It must be not good. So I'm just going to be on the negative side.
You're absolutely right. One of the things I love about my neighbor is he's always been very grounding. That I would ask him, hey, do you know who the mayor of Santa Clarita is? He's like, I don't have a clue. And, I would get so enmeshed in all of the detail, nuances, of local government. And here this guy's a very successful businessman, doesn't have a clue who even our mayor is. So it was always very humbling to speak to him.
I love it. Well, we had Paul Nerland on, who's the Fresno County administrator. And yeah, just talking about a while. I mean, it's so huge, that Fresno. And like you say, it's always interesting. One of the things I love is looking at these places in America that have to go through transformation. I mean, obviously, Fresno is still heavy agricultural, but it shifts, right? You think about all these cities that had timber and industrial that had to shift and change and become something new. And I think we're even experiencing that now with AI. What are we going to look like? What are cities going to do? How will they evolve and not sit on the past and maybe what's helped them thrive? How do they transition and continue to thrive and flourish in the future? And I think local gov is doing that. That's city management. You've got to live in the present, but also be leading and guiding to the future. And that's a big responsibility.
Absolutely. One of the things I learned very clearly about local government is the only constant is change. And you can't just rest on your laurels. The only thing, the things that make you good are not going to be good enough to keep you good. And you got to constantly be changing and evolving. And people don't like that. I mean, the only ones I've found that really embrace change are babies with wet diapers.
One thing I've learned from hosting hundreds of conversations with local government leaders is this: the challenges never stop changing. So many conversations seem to come back to the same question. How do you keep moving your community forward when there's never enough time, money, people, or certainty? You're always looking for ways to work smarter, make better decisions with limited resources, and prepare for what's coming next, all while still delivering the services your residents count on every day. That is why I'm grateful for partners like Tyler Technologies. Tyler has put together 3 free ebooks specifically for local government leaders that I think are well worth your time. One explores how your team can use AI to eliminate repetitive work and improve your efficiency. Another highlights how cloud technology can help modernize your operations. And the third focuses on how your organization can remain resilient, even when things don't go according to plan. You can download all 3 ebooks for free, along with several other resources, all at tylertech.com/winter. Again, tylertech.com/winter. HaltingWinter. And if you're going to be attending the NACO annual conference, it's in New Orleans this July. Stop by booth number 231 and connect with the Tyler team. They would love to learn more about your community and the unique challenges that you are facing. While you're there, if you'd like to see how AI is being used in an actual government setting, make sure to attend the Technology Innovation Forum. It's featuring Fulton County and Tyler Technologies. You're going to hear how they are putting these tools to work in their day-to-day operations and what they're learning along the way. To learn more about AI that works to make your county or your city government far more efficient, visit tylertech.com/winter. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I love it. There's the quote of the podcast. It's so good. Okay, so then you end up at City of Bakersfield. You said the assistant city manager position there. You're going to be there for a couple of years. And just to give a scope of the growth of Bakersfield, early 1980, it's like 105,000. By 1990, it's 175,000. So you're there right in the middle of that growth, which I'm sure had some challenges, had some projects, all kinds of stuff. And just to give the scope, so that's 175,000 in 1990. Today, it's like 422,000. So again, just radical growth. Talk about your time in Bakersfield. What was it like then to be in the ACM position? Maybe talk about those roles, maybe the difference between the deputy city manager and the assistant city manager, and what that, for someone who's young or someone who's maybe just starting in local gov, what do those positions really do? What's the responsibilities? What's cool and what maybe can be frustrating in that?
The assistant city manager position is just a phenomenal position. In a lot of ways, you're the chief of operations. As ACM, I deal with all the staff, all of the internal workings, be out in the community, but I'm not the city manager that walks around with the bullseye on his back. Everybody knows who the city manager is. The city manager is dealing with the council, with all the important people in the community, and the ACM gets to sit back and do more of the operational work. And so I really enjoyed that. One of the things I learned in Bakersfield had just a ridiculous number of rules. They had all the memorandums of understanding that each of the labor groups had. They had the municipal code, a charter. I mean, there was a rule for everything. And one of the things I found is that these rules, which a lot of times to change them required a vote of the population, that they prevented the city from doing what needed to be done. And so that was one of the things when I went to Santa Clarita. I wanted to make sure we had very few rules so that the people in charge could do what needed to be done and do it quickly and be responsive to the community. So that was a big learning process for me in Bakersfield. But that assistant city manager is really an opportunity to grow, particularly if you have a city manager that is progressive and willing to mentor you. My mentor and the city manager at the time was a gentleman named George Carvalho, who took me under his wing and gave me an opportunity to have a lot of different experiences, to learn from him and grow and make it so that then when I finally became a city manager, I really felt like I was completely ready for that role. When I became the assistant city manager, I really thought, I can't believe these people are stupid enough to think I can do this job. But, you fake it till you make it. And I worked really hard. I learned a lot and ended up having a great experience in that position.
I love it. I want to get to Santa Clarita and the role, from ACM to CM. But even what comes to my mind is what you just said. The ACM, everyone I talked to is who's now a city manager was like, man, the ACM was such a perfect role because, right, you get to do all these projects, you get that kind of big level leadership, but you don't have the bullseye, you don't have all the weight that a city manager has. And that's good. And we love, I think, I love to encourage, people to aspire to assistant city managers. How do we get assistant city managers to aspire to become the city managers? Because I'm worried that we have a lot of ACMs not willing to wear the bullseye. Because especially as, back, a decade, especially 2 decades ago, I think there was more respect maybe with the city manager position or any kind of positions of leadership. There was a little more decorum, a little more respect. And as kind of civilization has become so incivil, so just angry. Again, some people are like, I don't want that heat. Not only do I not want that heat, if you have a family, the disruption, and that's one of the issues of city management. If you get fired and you're kind of at the whim of political chaos, if you get fired, you got to move your whole family. It's not like there's another city manager position in that city. You've got to figure out where that is. And unless you live in like an LA County where there's tons of, positions kind of near each other, you could have to move to the other side of the state. You could have to move outside of the state. And so how do we encourage some assistant city managers to go, you're needed, and that role does have, for those who have the skills and the aptitudes, the city manager position is a good role to aspire to?
Well, I think there's a presumption sometimes that all assistant city managers should become city managers. And it's really not a position for everybody. You think about it, as an assistant city manager, you work for one person who's trained, educated, and knows how to be a city manager. They wouldn't have been hired in that role in the first place. They probably have more experience than you. They want to motivate you. They look at you as your employee. They want to guide you, help you, and make you successful. Then you become a city manager and you work for 5 or 7 or whatever number of people that none of them ever get up and think about, how am I going to motivate the city manager today? You got to get that from within. They generally or exclusively have way less experience than you. And you got to figure out a way to work with all of those people and the community and make your organization successful. As a city manager, you work a lot of hours for people that a lot of times don't really respect your time off, and it's a tough job. So I don't have a problem with people that want to stay in the assistant city manager role. That being said, to me, the city management position is the greatest position on earth. You really have an opportunity to have a positive impact on so many people, impact an organization, impact a community, and you get really cool experiences. I mean, as a city manager, I've been able to go back and have meetings in the White House and the Congress and deal with secretaries of the Interior. I've been able to get up in helicopters and fly around during massive firestorms. I've been involved in police activities. I mean, I've been exposed to so many things that other people have not had an opportunity to do it. And I never took that. I never just assumed that was a normal life. That was something that, as a city manager, you get exposed to, that I was always very grateful for. And just the opportunity to help so many people is something that you have a unique opportunity to do as a city manager. The other thing that a lot of people forget about is one of the powers of a city manager that doesn't get a lot of play is you have an opportunity to bring people together. And that, as city manager, if I got a problem with drugs in my community and I want to convene a meeting with the school superintendent, the county, a member of the county board of supervisors, the police chief, the recreation department, all of these people, I call them up and tell them we have a problem, and I can get all of these minds and perspectives from different organizations and have not just the city deal with an issue, but have all of these different levels of government participate in being problem solvers for this issue, so that the power to convene is something that is a very important power of a city manager.
And it seems like that the power, and not even the power, the purpose of not doing it alone. Like a local government can't do it alone. It needs, right? You've got to have the participants of whether that's school or other areas. Obviously, there's huge departments within a city, but then there's the public-private partnerships. And it just seems like, especially with budget and with time and staff, those relationships are so vital. And so maybe that's one of the things you can hit on as we transfer to Santa Clarita. You come in there in 1988, assistant city manager. You're serving that role for I think a good 14 years, I think, and then you become the city manager in 2002. Talk about again, I love how interesting, what is it? It was kind of 4 places that incorporate into one city. And like you say, it's already huge. Maybe you talk about, I would think that there's still identity. Like I was a pastor for a while, and we did a lot of church merges. People wanted to be a part of this big church that we were a part of. And, people get excited about that, but then it's like, oh, wait, we don't do it this way. This is the way we've always done it. Why do we have to do it this way? How was that? And what were some of the headaches of kind of that birth, but also what were some of the really cool things?
Well, let me tell you about the cool things first. I remember one time the city had just formed, and we maybe had a half dozen employees at the time. And the city manager and I had stayed late working on a couple of projects, and we heard this knock on the door at City Hall. We'd already closed up. And when I say City Hall, we were working out of this little tiny office space that we'd rented right next to the Suzuki dealership. And so we'd listen to them start up their motorcycles all day. But this guy knocks on the door, and he comes in and he says, hey, I'm a developer. I want to get this project approved. Is there any way you guys can help me? And it was a small project. And so the city manager and I look at it and go, yeah, that seems reasonable. He goes, well, how do I get it approved? And I go, we just got this deal in today that is the official stamp for the city that I think's in the city clerk's office or in her desk. And I think we can approve it right here. He goes, approve it here now? I go, well, I don't see why not. So I get this stamp out, and it had never been assembled. So the 3 of us, fortunately, this guy was an engineer. The 3 of us put this stamp together, and we try it out on some paper first. And then we take his plans, prove it, sign it. And he says, that's it? That's all I need to do? We go, yeah, that's it. You're approved. You can go ahead and start building. He walks out with all his plans under his arm, walks out the door, stops, and turns around and comes back in and goes, this is the best city ever. So you get to do cool things like that, there's nobody to tell you can't do things. So you just do what needs to be done. So when I back on those days, there were trials and tribulations where it's just so many things that needed to be done right away. And we didn't have employees to do them. So just a handful of us had to do them. And we put a lot of emphasis on hiring people. And every one of those was an opportunity to get somebody who could really make a difference. But it was also an opportunity to get somebody that wouldn't make a difference. So we always thought that in the organizations we worked in, that 20% of the people were doing 80% of the work. So with each hire, we really tried to find one of those 20% people. And we built a reputation of being innovative, of getting things done. And that was really a good recruitment tool that people wanted to work for an organization that was innovative and willing to take risks.
It is so wild to that story of this kind of Avengers team of people who have had these experiences in local government. Like you say, you saw cool things, but you also saw some things that were like, man, this is a problem. This is what's holding back the opportunity for local government. That's kind of the issue with local government. These, most local government organizations have been around forever. And so they have institutional knowledge, which is great, They also have institutional baggage, which can kind of become the bureaucracy, the red tape, those things, like you say, that can take things forever, or really hinder that opportunity for growth or connection. And you're here at the beginning going, okay, how do we? That must have been that guy probably thought he had a dream. He's like, this cannot be real. I'm getting the
That's right.
stamp.
Yeah. I mean, I'd worked for cities that had more baggage than Samsonites. So, I mean, I really wanted to use the opportunity to make it so that we could build an organization without all of that, where people had the wherewithal to just do what needed to be done and do it without all the bureaucracy that faces a lot of local governments. And we were able to get just an unbelievable amount of projects done in a relatively short period of time.
And as you mentioned, the kind of it seems like the plug in the pipeline was just staff. Already local government, everyone's wearing so many hats. You have a job, but it's like there's still work that's got to be done. So you're juggling, you're wearing different hats. As the organization grew, how did you maintain that speed? How did you not? What were some of the things? Because I think about some of these places are experienced rapid growth. Like I talked to a guy in South Carolina, and he says his staff is almost tripled in just 5 years because the growth is so huge. They got to, they had one planner, now they have 4. And so how did you guys make sure to keep the organization lean thinking as it grew?
One of the things we did, Seth, very early on is we brought the employees together. And at the time, maybe we had 20 employees, brought them all in a conference room. And we talked about, hey, we're a very young organization. And the thing that's going to be most important as we move forward is to have values that we can all agree on. And so we talked about the values of things like we value excellence. We value a humanistic organization where we care about the individual. We value creativity. We value risk taking. We value a bias for action. We value looking at the future. We valued enthusiasm. And most importantly, we value ethics and integrity and wanted to do everything we did needed to be measured by that. So we kind of drafted all that up and got agreement with that. And then when we would hire people, we would show them what our values were and make sure we were hiring people that they were comfortable with these values. And then routinely we would get however many employees we had at the time, maybe once a year, bring them all back together and ask them, hey, are these values still relevant? Do they still reflect who we are? And are we doing justice to these? Are we living by these values? Because we didn't just want those written on a value statement. We wanted the employees living those day to day. We wanted them to know what the values were. And so that was probably the most effective thing we did to build an organization that we could be true to.
It seems like that, yes, having clear mission and then values that actually are helping guide what's important, the behaviors really of the people we have. How did you, I just finished a 3-month kind of focus on culture and how to build culture. And one of those aspects is you've got to tie your rewards to the values. And that's kind of the problem is we have value posters we're supposed to know, but they're not really, like, again, risk taking. Well, when was the last time someone did a risk taking? Were they rewarded for that? Were they applauded for that? And we don't really connect the values to our rewards and to our behaviors. Talk about maybe that. How did you do that?
Well, the thing we did that was probably most effective for that is when we built our evaluation system, we based it on our value statement. And we went through the different values and measured the employees on how they were doing on those values. So they really learned the values and saw the value of the value statement. And each and every one of those was something that we always held ourselves accountable to and had to live up to.
I love that. So good. Talk about when you become the city manager, you've already kind of talked about the difference between, the ACM, the city manager role, but what was it like then to be in that chair for now this organization? And then what was, obviously you had been in that role for the ACM role for a number of years. What was it like to take over as the city manager? Give us kind of a feel of where Santa Clarita was in its growth process.
To me, it really felt good. As I mentioned, a lot of my other positions I had, I really wasn't confident in myself that I would be successful at them. And it took a while to learn how to do that job. When I became city manager, I'd been the assistant city manager for so long. I knew the council, I knew the community, I knew the projects, I knew all the employees. And I really felt like, hey, now it's my time. That now, because my style has always been very collaborative, that now is my time to work with the employees, the community, and the council and develop a vision so that we can take an organization that's already doing well and move it forward and make it even more successful.
So good. As you're there, you serve as the League of California Cities, the president over the city management department. I know we're going to talk about the CCMF, but what is it? What are the encouragements you would have for people to be a part of these things, whether it's serving like you did as the president, but even just participating in things like the League of California Cities, the associations? I'm sure there's the MMASC down there. Cal ICMA has something. What is it like, especially because, again, you're the only city manager in Santa Clarita? It's not like you can go down to a Chamber of Commerce, luncheon and hang out with others and vent and get ideas. You got to kind of make the time and the space. And I think that's one of the issues with a role that's so demanding, like you mentioned even before, even your vacations, it can be kind of like you can easily be bothered on those. How do you make time for that? And what is the importance? How have those associations benefited you?
I think it's very important for city managers to give back to some of these organizations. As you mentioned, I was very involved in the League of California Cities, went up through the chairs and became the president. Well, as it turned out, the year I was president was the same year that whole debacle in the city of Bell went down, where there was so much controversy with the city manager there that had been on the take and ended up just getting an exorbitant salary for unnecessarily and really taking people's money from the city of Bell. And so as the leader of the organization, I was very involved in statewide media and talking about the city manager role that, as I mentioned before, most people don't understand. And so it was an opportunity to provide leadership at the state level, but it's also an opportunity, almost as an afterthought, to meet all of your peers. And I got to the point where I knew most of the city managers in the state. And so that was really an opportunity for me to get to see what wonderful people we have running these cities all up and down the state of California. And I really made lifelong friends in that. So it's not only good for the profession, but it's good for, I think, individual city managers to be exposed to other city managers throughout the state. So I really encourage people to get involved in organizations like the League of California, like League of California Cities, like the California City Management Foundation, and get to know their peers and get to give back to the profession.
I have this unique pleasure, this unique opportunity to meet with thousands of local government leaders from across the nation every year through conferences and workshops and the podcast. Just these interviews, these conversations are just so insightful. And one of the things I have learned about local government leaders is this: the best leaders are lifelong learners, not because they have all the answers. It's because they understand that leadership, that journey of leadership, is never finished. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every budget season, every organizational change or disruption is another opportunity to grow. That's why this summer we're doing something different inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. We're launching a special summer series called Stories That Shape Leaders. You know that every week I take a best-selling book, usually a business book, and we break down its insights and apply them to local gov. This summer, we're taking biographies, memoirs, timeless leadership books that don't necessarily fall into those typical business, culture, strategy kind of genre. And we're going to explore the lives, the decisions, the failures, challenges, the lessons of leaders who navigated incredible adversity, who had to build trust when hope was fleeting, who inspired others not only to dream, but to take action, and who left a lasting impact. Leadership isn't shaped just through strategies and frameworks alone. It is shaped through stories. Stories that challenge assumptions, stories that expand our perspective, stories that help us become the leaders our communities need us to be. When you join the MLDC, you unlock the entire summer series, but you unlock even more. You unlock the weekly leadership content, the live mastermind sessions, the nationwide community of local government leaders, and all the MLDC resources, not just for the summer, but for the rest of 2026. If you are looking for a place to continue growing this summer while connecting with leaders who understand the unique challenges of local government, I would love to invite you to join us. Learn more at haltingwinter.com/MLDC or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. I want to get to the city, California City Management Foundation, the organization you're the executive director of. Before we do that, let's make sure we hit on Santa Clarita, because I think Santa Clarita just, again, not only having Ken Striplone, the current city manager, yourself, Patrick Bryant, who spoke so highly of it, it just seems like the organization is so geared towards internally just a robust, healthy culture that then extends into all of its work. But when you think about that, obviously, and again, it's recognized. The Helen Putnam, I think, award multiple times talks about an organization itself. Tell us about, what do you think are some of the key secrets, if we can encourage some city managers listening? How do you, again, there's so many things you can do. What do you think are the key priorities of creating an environment where the organization is just, people love to be a part of it, they're excited, and they're doing great?
Well, I think one of the things that the city of Santa Clarita has been blessed with is stability in local government. That the city formed in 1987, and they are now on their third city manager. So in all of those years, there's been a lot of stability. Many of the council members have been council members for over 20 years. Again, a lot of stability. But I think in some organizations, you have leaders, and others you have followers. And I think in Santa Clarita, we always would encourage people to be a leader. So when you think about that, what does that mean? That always at the forefront for me was integrity. And I would tell people that if you're conducting yourself with integrity, nothing else matters. If you're conducting yourself without integrity, nothing else matters. And so everything you do, people want to follow a leader that conducts themselves with integrity. So that was always the first and most important part of the job. I think it's important as a leader to have a deep understanding of the business, that you got to understand each and every department at some level. You've got to have consistency. A leader can't just conduct themselves at the whim of what's going on, change things around because they read the most current management book, but you have to conduct yourself with consistency year in and year out. A leader has to be willing to admit when they make a mistake, that as a city manager, you make lots and lots of decisions. And sometimes you screw them up. And that's just who we are as humans. And I think people appreciate a leader that can admit their own faults and admit a mistake. You have to have great listening skills. And I think people, when they bring something to the city manager and have an opportunity to make their say, if the city manager disagrees with them and does something different, they won't have a problem with it as long as they felt like they were truly heard. So I think listening skills are very important. And finally, I think people want a leader, they want a city manager that's decisive, that there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. And in a lot of organizations, decisions get postponed year after year after year. And I think they always respect a manager who says, this is what we're going to do and moves forward. So that those
so
are
many.
come to mind.
Yeah, so many good takeaways there, especially that last one, just the ability to act, especially when there's heat and there's could be consequences. Like, but a city, if you want a flourishing city, decisions have to be made. I think that's one of the things I see over and over through conversations with successful leaders around the country.
Seth, I think it's important too that as a leader, a leader conducts themselves with a high level of enthusiasm. That I always remember this cartoon I saw one time where these kids were walking down into a subway in France, and they're doing what kids do all the time. They're laughing and screwing around and having a great time. And then they go into the subway and walk out at the other end of the subway, the other end of the cartoon. And they're middle-aged men and women that are hunched over, and you can just see the life has been sucked out of them. And there's no caption because one isn't necessary. It just begs the question, what happened? What happened to all that frivolity, all that enthusiasm? So for me, I think it's the leader's role and job to show that enthusiasm, to be fired up and make it so that it's infectious throughout the whole organization so that other people are enthusiastic as well. As a leader, when you walk in on Monday morning, and people say, "How was your weekend?" And you can't say, it's another Monday. You got to be fired up, whether you are or not. You got to show them you're fired up and you're looking forward to a new week, new opportunities, new challenges, and get more stuff done and show that enthusiasm.
I love it. So good. And in fact, you pass over the reins in 2012 to Ken Strickland, and then, but it's not done for you. You're going to end up serving as the interim city manager for Burbank. Talk about that. I think that's such a cool thing. A great way to serve post kind of retirement in these interim positions to help. What does that look like to bring some kind of stability, some of that enthusiasm, especially during that kind of period where, when you're looking for a new city manager, it's not a short process, and the staff internally can feel a lot of, I'm sure, turmoil, can feel like projects, like everything's kind of on hold. What was that like for you to serve in that role?
It was awesome. Burbank is such a cool city. They got really good staff. The community is good. It's got the whole media thing going on. I love Burbank. It's a big operation. The budget when I was there was almost $1 billion. It's probably quite a bit over that now, but that's a big number for a city manager. The time that I was there, I got to hire the fire chief, the police chief, the community development director, most of the department heads. At the time, the budget wasn't balanced, and the finance director came in, and I told her we were going to have a balanced budget. She said, "No, you can't do that." I go, "I'm not bringing a budget to the council that's not balanced." And she said, "No, you can't do that." I said, "No, you hear me. We're going to bring a balanced budget to council," which we did. And the council and community loved it. They hadn't had a balanced budget for years. They hadn't had a general plan that had been updated in over 10 years. And I was able to bring that to fruition. So it was a lot of things that had been lingering, that I talked about decisiveness before, that they had not been able to make these decisions. And in a lot of ways, an interim position is stronger than a full-time permanent city manager, because you don't have to worry so much about the political fallout, and you can just do what needs to be done for an organization. So we got a tremendous amount done And it was a really positive experience for me.
I love that you showed that, because I would think the tendency in interim positions would just be to come in and babysit the organization. But you came in like guns blazing, like, hey, let's get some stuff done. Let's go.
Yeah, babysitting is not my strong suit.
Exactly. Well, let's dive in these closing minutes to the California City Management Foundation, the CCMF. You've served as the executive director since 2014. I want to talk about, or I want to at least highlight the 5 essential roles, because I think these are so important. Number 1, celebrate individual city managers and the profession. Number 2, support policies that make for successful, manageable, and enduring cities. Number 3, to ensure the profession remains attractive to the best talent, to ensure city managers are available to cities. Number 4, to help current and future city managers advance their careers with education, training, career transition. And number 5, to encourage and support managers through difficult times. As I have now interviewed hundreds of city managers, county administrators from across the nation, those 5, I think, speak exactly to the things I think are necessary, are needed, and the organizations that are doing them are seeing fruit. Talk to us about how did the CCMF come to fruition, and what is it? Talk about being the executive director now for over a decade.
Well, the California City Management Foundation was founded in 1985. And really, it was city managers getting together and recognizing that the tenure of city manager in California had dropped to about 3 years. And you talked earlier about how city managers, when they get fired, they have to move their families and their kids and all over the state. And that really gets the point where if it's so bad, people are going to stop wanting to be a city manager. And it's always been important for the profession that we can attract the best and the brightest to the profession. And if you know you're going to get canned within a few years, you can't do that. So a group of city managers got together and said that, hey, we want to develop an organization that is by city managers and for city managers. So we do celebrate individual city managers. We recognize them and promote them when they do something positive. We go up and meet with people up in Sacramento, so they know we're a resource to them, and promote policies that make it so that city managers can be successful. We do try and make it so that we have rules and regulations in place so we can get the best and the brightest. And we help current and future city managers with their careers. We do a symposium for new and future city managers once a year. We just completed a symposium for people for their mid-career to talk about how they can finish with a flurry. And then we encourage and support them during tough times when they are going through transitions. And I always tell people that you should be a member of California City Management Foundation, whether you need those services or not, because somebody else will. And it's much like when you buy your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance, your highest hope is that you never have to use it, and it's a complete waste of money. But if you're in the event you do have to use them, those services are available. So that's a little bit about the foundation.
It's necessary, needed, like you say. You already mentioned it. The network, having that network, when that role can feel so isolating and so alone. And it's not just because, like we've mentioned, the geographical. It's also the reality internally in the organization. You are in that role has this unique, I call it the municipal tightrope, and you've got this kind of 3-headed snake at times. You've got the electeds, you've got staff, and you've got residents, and none of those are all on the same page, right? You've got electeds, they've got agendas, you got staff and departments and trying to get collaboration and not silos, and you got residents, and they all have, their things that they want, the potholes on their streets. It's a unique position. Like you say, it does have stress, but the opportunity for impact is so enormous. And how cool is it?
See, that's the thing, that as a city manager, somehow or another, with all of that, you have to develop a vision and get other people to buy into that vision and then ultimately bring it to reality. I mean, that's where the rubber hits the road.
And what do you think when you look back now on this career and you look back at, with the CCMF, so many, I'm sure, stories, and you've seen the success stories. How would you encourage a city manager today? What is what's important professionally, but also what's important personally? Because I do a lot of talk on well-being. It's probably my most famous keynote. Balance is BS. There's no such thing as balance. There's just intention. But if you aren't intentional about those vacations, about making sure that you have energy in the tank, you're not probably going to show up enthusiastic, like you said. How do you do that? What are some of the keys professionally and personally last well and to create impact?
Well, one of the things I haven't mentioned is during my time as assistant city manager and city manager, I was a single dad, full-time single dad. So trying to do that position while taking care of two kids is very difficult. And you really have to take time to take care of yourself. And it's a very consuming job. And it's a job that if you want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's plenty to do. And so somehow or another, you got to make sure that you're delegating to people, that you're taking care of yourself, you're taking time to keep yourself healthy and staying on the right track. But as you mentioned, that's easier said than done.
It is. And that's why I think also why these organizations, they bring you some accountability. So you can check in, so you can have someone saying, hey, are you getting that time off? Well, what are you doing? And even I know now some city managers, their families do vacations together, and it's kind of cool. So, and maybe even, you at the beginning of your life, you talked about Sweden and traveling. I know now so many city managers that's what they kind of feel like they've got to get out of the States, even when they go on vacation, to just be able to unplug and unwind. Do you still travel across the world?
I was in Patagonia months ago. Just got back from Europe a couple of weeks ago. So that's through my whole life has been a high priority for me. I've been in, I think, over 80 countries now, and seeing new places and experiencing new cultures is something very
so good. Well, man, we could talk forever. Well, let's end with this, because you mentioned this at the beginning. Public service. We've kind of hit on this over and over, but I just want to. I think you probably have some good final closing words on. Public service right now does have what seems to be a bad rap. When we've talked about leadership, you talk about government. Tell us about some of your thoughts on public service and why we should see that as a noble calling and as noble work, and be aware of maybe how we're geared to maybe be pushed towards maybe the negative lenses of that.
Great. Thank you. I think conventional wisdom is that government workers are low achieving screw ups who can't get a job someplace else. Media portrays us as incompetent. If you look at the national news, they're very eager to put on a story about a city worker or a state worker or a federal worker that screws up, and reticent to put on all of the good things that these public employees do every day. People think we're lazy, do nothing people who suck up at the public trough. My experience is profoundly different than that. My experience is that I've met people with very strong work ethics, with hearts of gold, that are creative people. I remember Daniel Moynihan said once, if you have contempt for government, you will get contemptible government. And I think it's because people just take as a matter of fact that government is bad. It's somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you look at what government has done, we've done a lot. I mean, you can go back, government won World War II. Government created the national park system. Government put men on the moon. Government built the interstate highway system, the sewer treatment systems, the pools, parks and recreations, clean water. They police our communities. They protect us from fire. You can go on and on. Education. All of these are government employees that fundamentally create the positive communities and environments in which we live. So if you want to make a difference in this world, public service is the place for you. That is where you can really make a change. You think about it, we are the architects and the builders of the good life. We've been trained, we've been given the responsibility and the authority to weave the urban fabric, which we've been entrusted to create the quilt for our communities. And we know how to do it, and we can do it. We have done it. It is a noble profession, and we should talk about that and be proud of the work that we do, particularly in local government, where we day in and day out have a positive impact on families and communities.
So good. So good. So true. And I echo that as I have toured the country and even North America, meeting local government employees and leaders, I am nothing but encouraged. These people are giving far more than I think, like you said, the idea of lazy. I meet people who are working too much, but that's because they care about the mission. And the work, like you said, never stops. There's so much work to be done. And I think that's why I want more people to be aware of it, because we do want the best of the best in local government, because I think we're on the precipice of great new things in our cities, in our counties, in our communities. And we need people passionate about the mission to serve.
Couldn't agree more.
Oh, so good. Ken, thank you for sharing your life, your leadership journey, and your insights. So many good nuggets to take away today. And again, I just want to encourage, if you are a leader or city manager, the CCMF is a great organization that I want to encourage you to be part of. And again, not only the community, but the trainings, the resources there for whatever kind of season of life you are in, whether you're aspiring to city management, whether you are a city manager, whether you're in transition, the CCMF has the tools and the support able to assist you where you're at today. And you not only to receive, but to give back. That's the cool thing about these communities, is you are there to be, that agent of encouragement and of resource to others in the organization.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for having me on, Seth. This has been a real pleasure opportunity to talk to you. You do a great job. I appreciate it.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.